My dear students, today I am going to discuss with you about physiology of language and speech. आज हम लोग फिजियोलॉजी ऑफ लैंग्वेज और स्पीच के बारे में पढ़ेंगे. First, some historical aspects. I want to tell you few names, three important persons who was having contributed significantly in the physiology, understanding the physiology of language and speech. First person was Paul Broca. He discovered Broca's area, and that area is identified as the area of brain responsible for synthesis of speech. Speech को बनाने में मदद करता है ये area, Broca area. It will come often repeatedly in this session that what are the different areas of the brain involved in the formation of speech synthesis. Second person was Carl Wernicke. Carl Wernicke, he discovered Wernicke's area, and that area is responsible for speech understanding of speech के लिए. So first one was the Broca, another person was the Wernicke, Carl Wernicke, and he discovered Wernicke's area. Wernicke's area is responsible for comprehension of speech. ये हमारे स्पीच को समझने के लिए, हम क्या बोलने वाले हैं उसको समझने के लिए ये एरिया रिस्पॉन्सिबल है. Third name that comes again in this field, that is Henry Head. Henry Head, he is the pioneer scientist in the field of speech disorders, and he is the first one to classify the speech disorders. Nowadays, speech disorders, there are a lot variety of speech disorders are known, and in that Head's classification of speech disorder is still we will discuss that part. Now coming to what do you understand by language and what do you mean by speech. So first is language. Language is, you can say, language is defined as the process to understand spoken and printed words to express ideas in speech and writing is called language. भाषा किसे कहते हैं? भाषा वह जिसको कि हम जैसे कि समझ पाए. किसे समझ पाए? यदि किसी ने बोला है स्पोकन वर्ड को, या कुछ रिटन या प्रिंटेड वर्ड्स हैं जो कि किसी आइडिया को एक्सप्रेस कर रहे हैं. आइडिया को आइदर इन द टर्म्स ऑफ स्पीच, बोलने के टर्म में, या राइटिंग के टर्म में. यदि इस तरह से यदि है तो यदि बोलने या रिटन को पढ़ना, उसको समझना और उसको एक्सप्रेस कर पाना, दैट इज कॉल्ड लैंग्वेज. इसी को हम लोग भाषा कहते हैं. इट इज ए वेरी ब्रॉड टर्म. यू नो देयर आर सो मेनी लैंग्वेजेस इन द वर्ल्ड, एंड विदाउट लैंग्वेज we face so many difficulty in this world. So language is very important for the survival of human, and this is the only difference. This is the, you can say, this is one of the major difference between the human beings and the lower animals. जो भी हमारे लोअर एनिमल्स हैं उनमें और हम में यही अंतर है कि हम अपनी बातों को भाषा के जरिए एक्सप्रेस कर पाते हैं. ओके. Next, what is speech? Speech is basically expression of thought by production of articulate sound that bear some definite meaning. हम ऐसे साउंड को बना पाना, उनको प्रोड्यूस करना जो कि हमारे थॉट को एक्सप्रेस करते हैं, इसे हम लोग स्पीच कहते हैं. सो स्पीच इज बेसिकली द साउंड दैट इज प्रोड्यूस्ड वर्बली. स्पीच उन्हें बोलते हैं जो लोग हमारे जो हमारे वर्बली एक्सप्रेस किए गए हैं, जो साउंड, दैट साउंड शुड हैव सम डेफिनिट मीनिंग, देन इट इज कॉल्ड एज स्पीच. इफ मीनिंग इज नो देयर, देन दैट स्पीच इज कॉल्ड स्पीच डिसऑर्डर. सो नॉर्मल फेज में हम लोग स्पीच तब बोलते हैं जब इट बियर्स सम डेफिनिट मीनिंग विद इट. If the thought is expressed in terms of some visual symbol, यदि कोई सिंबल बना के, कोई संकेत के फॉर्म में यदि दिए गए हैं यदि कोई थॉट को एक्सप्रेस किए गए हैं, दैट इज कॉल्ड एज राइटिंग। जो रिटन है या प्रिंटेड, यू कैन से राइटन और प्रिंटेड। So that is if the thought is expressed in terms of visual symbols, and we know कि उसको हम लोग लिपि भी कहते हैं कि अलग अलग भाषाओं को एक्सप्रेस करने के अलग अलग तरीके से उनके सिंबॉलिक रिप्रेजेंटेशन है। These symbols are become so familiar with us, ये सिंबल हमारे लिए इतने फैमिलियर हो जाते हैं कि हमें लगता है कि यही वो है। जैसे हमें लिखना है कोई एप्पल, APPLE, यदि हमें एप्पल लिखना है तो ए का एक डिफिनिट पैटर्न है। सो दैट पैटर्न इज बेसिकली द विजुअल सिंबल। सो दैट विजुअल सिंबल इज बेसिकली, जैसे हम लिख रहे हैं APPLE। सो एनीबॉडी हु अंडरस्टैंड्स दिस basically these symbols, what these represent, they can easily identify. So it is the you can say it is for the better understanding of our thoughts. Sometimes we need to write the things. If the visual symbol or written words are expressed verbally, जो चीज लिखे गए हैं, जैसे यही एप्पल लिखा गया है, तो इसे हम यदि बोलेंगे एप्पल, so that is basically called reading. So reading, writing are different than speech. Speech is the sound produced verbally. राइटिंग इज बेसिकली द विजुअल सिंबल के फॉर्म में एक्सप्रेस करना, उसी को जो विजुअल सिंबल में एक्सप्रेस किए गए उसी को बोल पाना, दैट इज कॉल्ड रीडिंग। देयर आर टू टाइप्स और मेजर टाइप्स ऑफ स्पीच आर रिकॉग्नाइज। दो बड़े मेजर टाइप के स्पीच को रिकॉग्नाइज किए गए हैं। फर्स्ट वन इज कॉल्ड स्पोकन स्पीच। सो बिकॉज अभी हमने बताया कि जो हम लोग अदर बोल के हमने रिप्रेजेंट किया है। अनदर टाइप इज कॉल्ड रिटन स्पीच, जिसको हम लोग लिख के रिप्रेजेंट किया है। स्पोकन स्पीच का मीनिंग क्या है? अंडरस्टैंडिंग द स्पोकन वर्ड्स एंड एक्सप्रेसिंग आइडियाज इन स्पीच। यदि हम जो हम वर्ड्स को अंडरस्टैंड करके और उन्हें दैट एक्सप्रेस द आइडियाज इन द वर्बल वर्ड्स, दैट इज कॉल्ड स्पोकन स्पीच। Written speech is it means understanding written words and expressing the ideas in writing, उनको लिख कर रिप्रेजेंट करना। सो दैट इज कॉल्ड रिटन स्पीच। सो स्पीच को दो मेजर टाइप में डिवाइड किए गए हैं। वन इज कॉल्ड स्पोकन स्पीच, अनदर इज कॉल्ड रिटन स्पीच। दोनों ही स्पीच के लिए मैकेनिज्म्स में थोड़ा डिफरेंस हो जाता है, दैट वी विल रीड व्हेन वी रीड अबाउट द मैकेनिज्म ऑफ लैंग्वेज एंड स्पीच। इन दैट द ब्रेन एरियाज इन्वॉल्व। अब जैसे ये रिटन वर्ड्स है, उनको समझना और उनको एक्सप्रेस करना राइटिंग के फॉर्म में, दैट इज कॉल्ड रिटन स्पीच। और ये क्या है? स्पोकन वर्ड्स को समझना और एक्सप्रेस करना इन द फॉर्म ऑफ द वर्बल sounds, that is called as basically the spoken speech. This is the diagram that shows the organs involved in speech. These organs are basically the peripheral organs present in our head and neck area, in that the oral cavity and the tongue in it. ओरल कैविटी और टंग, इनका की स्पीच में बहुत बड़ा रोल है, ओरल कैविटी और टंग। देन उसके बाद देयर इज अनदर इम्पोर्टेंट प्लेस दैट इज इम्पोर्टेंट फॉर द स्पीच इज द नेजल कैविटी। नेजल कैविटी जो है उनका भी रोल है स्पीच में। देन हार्ड पैलेट एंड सॉफ्ट पैलेट एंड द फेरिंजियल कैविटी, जो एयर को इधर से जो फूड का हमारा जो पाइप, so then there is the difference is created between the pharynx. You can see this is basically the epiglottis, vocal folds, then there is the trachea. So these all are the organs involved in the speech. But oral cavity, pharyngeal cavity and nasal cavity, their three cavities are interacted in such a manner to modify the sounds which are coming from the movement of the vocal fold and vocal cords and airs which are coming from the lungs, और उनको सही से modify करके, उनको relax करके, उनको modulate करके जो एक sound produce होता है, in that these organs are involved in the speech production. So the basically the larynx opening into the pharynx, and so these are basically the important portions of the. So development of a speech के दो stages हैं. First stage it occurs association of certain words with visual association of certain words with visual sensation or the tactile sensation or the auditory sensation or and other sensations that aroused by object in external world which is stored in memory. So first stage is basically the association of words with the other sensory stimuli which are aroused by object in the world and then stored in the form of memory. So this is the first stage. Second stage is when the definite meaning has been attached to certain word. So उस certain word के साथ कुछ एक defining meaning attach हो जाए. So therefore that the pathway between the auditory area and the motor area for muscles of articulation which help in speech is established. So ये सेकेंड स्टेज में एक डेफिनेट मीनिंग बन जाना. सो पहले हमारा डिफरेंट सेंसरी इंफॉर्मेशंस को हमारे ब्रेन के डिफरेंट एरियाज में मेमोरी के फॉर्म में स्टोर होना एंड देन बेसिकली उसका डेफिनेट मीनिंग बना के उसका वो रिप्रेजेंट करना एंड द पाथवे बिटवीन द auditory area and the motor area help in the form of the establishment of speech. थोड़ा और डिटेल में देखने से पहले हम लोग कुछ रोल ऑफ कॉर्टिकल एरिया ब्रेन के कुछ एरिया सेरेब्रल कॉर्टेक्स के कुछ एरियाज के बारे में जानना चाहेंगे जो कि स्पीच में या लैंग्वेज में इन्वॉल्व हैं. सो डेवलपमेंट ऑफ स्पीच इन्वॉल्व इंटीग्रेशन ऑफ द थ्री इंपॉर्टेंट एरियाज ऑफ द सेरेब्रल कॉर्टेक्स. इसमें थ्री इंपॉर्टेंट एरियाज बोले बट देयर आर मोर देन that we will discuss in more details in the upcoming slide. So first of the three, one is the Wernicke area that I told you in the historical aspects, in the discussion of historical aspect, that the Wernicke area is responsible for speech understanding. Second is the Broca area, it is responsible for speech synthesis, and third one is the motor area of the brain which is responsible for activation of peripheral speech apparatus that includes the vocal fold, that includes the tongue and the pharyngeal muscles, larynx and the various sound box. That so these interaction of that modulation of the air and इसके लिए हमारे मोटर एरिया का इन्वॉल्व है जो कि डिसेंडिंग मोटर ट्रैक्स के थ्रू इन मसल्स को सप्लाई करते हैं. So these are the three major areas, that is the Wernicke area, Broca area and the motor area. Wernicke area for the understanding what to be spoken, it is for the delivering the speech in the form of the formation of words. So that's why it is called as the motor speech area. So this is called as motor speech area and the previous one is called as the सेंसरी स्पीच एरिया. सो इसको सेंसरी स्पीच एरिया और इसको मोटर स्पीच एरिया बोला जाता है. सो ये जो एरियाज हैं बेसिकली द वर्निक एंड द ब्रोका एरिया एज वेल एज द मोटर एरिया that controls the activities of the muscles. These are used, you can see here, for the particular word to speech. कुछ भी बोलने के लिए जैसे इस पर्सन को तो तीन मेजर एरिया का रोल है. यू कैन नोटिस हियर वन इज द वर्निक एरिया दैट इज बेसिकली फॉर द अंडरस्टैंडिंग व्हाट टू बी स्पोकन. देन ब्रोका एरिया for the synthesis of the words and but what words to be spoken and from where, how the muscles, what the different muscles will. So for that there is the motor cortex. So the three important areas for the responsible which are responsible for the speech production. About Broca area and Wernicke's area, it has been known by the lesion study और injury study. ये उन लोगों में ये देखा गया पहले जिनमें कि लीजन किया, जिनके में ये लीजन्स थे. सो जिनमें लीजन थे that shows that the brain areas is responsible or necessary for the given task. Without Broca area you cannot produce the speech. Without Wernicke area you cannot understand what to speak. So these two areas इस तरह से पता लगे लीजन स्टडी करके. इनके बारे में ये भी है कि if you lose these areas will you lose language. इनका एक बाद में ये स्टडी किए गए और पता लगे लीजन स्टडीज से, लीजन या इंजुरी स्टडीज से, कि यदि आप ये एरिया यदि लूज कर जाते हो तो आप लैंग्वेज लूज कर जाते हो। या आप यदि अपना लैंग्वेज, यदि इसी चीज को यदि आप, व्हेन यू यूज लैंग्वेज यू यूज दोज एरियाज। सो जब आप वो लैंग्वेज बोलते हो, जब आप लैंग्वेज बोलते हो, तब आप इस एरियाज को यूज करते हो। सो दिस इज द बेसिकली द बेसिस ऑफ द, सो इन एरियाज को यूज करना और नॉट यूज नहीं करना, इस पे जो है ये ब्रोका एंड वर्निक्स एरिया लीजन स्टडी से पता लग गया। Wernicke has given a theory of language. He, in very early time, almost 100 years back, he told us about the theory of language. And what was that? The theory was formulated, theory of language was formulated on the basis of defect in language. जिन लोगों के डिफेक्ट, लैंग्वेज में डिफेक्ट देख करके इनको ऑब्जर्व किए गए, दे आर ऑब्जर्व इन पेशेंट्स विद द लीजन इन द डिफरेंट पार्ट्स ऑफ कॉर्टेक्स। According to this theory, the utterance arises in the Wernicke's area and pass to the Broca area via the arcuate fasciculus. So इस थ्योरी के हिसाब से कोई भी शब्द हम बोलते हैं या मुंह से निकलता है, that arises in Wernicke area and then pass to Broca area via the arcuate fasciculus. So Wernicke and Broca area के बीच का कनेक्शन बनाने का एक fasciculus और white matter tract है, that is called arcuate fasciculus. So this according to, so इसके वजह से ये utterance या हम कोई भी word बोलते हैं, after the sentence is formulated in Broca area, they send the information to the motor cortex, and where the movement is programmed by activation of appropriate muscles. So वहां पे एक बार ये, so यानी क्या हुआ, जो utterance है उसको बोलने के लिए पहले Wernicke area से with the help of the arcuate fasciculus goes to the Broca area, from the Broca area information sent to motor cortex, from the motor cortex to the peripheral or the appropriate muscles. So this is basically the Wernicke theory of the language, very simplified theory that tells us about how the language is. Now about these areas, about some points, but later on with some more studies, it has been observed that few more areas are known, or few more areas has been identified as the language and speech area. So for more details, there are the receptive area and there is the expressive areas. Receptive areas include Wernicke's, number one, that we know it is for the processing of the sensory information, for somatic, sensory, visual and auditory cortex. This is normally asked question, ये generally पूछा जाता है, what is the role of Wernicke's area, where they are located? It is located in the temporal lobe, it is located in the superior temporal, you can notice here the Wernicke area is located in the temporal lobe. This colored area is basically the Wernicke area. Present in the angular gyrus, you can notice here. So this gyrus, angular gyrus present in the temporal lobe, that is basically is the called as the Wernicke's area. It is also called as the sensory speech area. So it comes under the receptive area of the language. Another receptive area is called the angular gyrus, basically that is basically that subserves the perception of the written language, and this is called angular gyrus. So you can notice here, so this is basically the angular gyrus, then this is the surrounding there, that this colored area is called the Wernicke's area. So this is called Wernicke area, and then this is the angular gyrus. So these are the two important areas. Another area important for the speech is the executive or expressive areas, and that we know all that it is the Broca area. Broca area is basically called as the motor speech area. You can notice here, it regulates the functions of the muscles, lips, pharynx and larynx with the help of the motor cortex. ये motor cortex को information दे के, motor cortex है, so motor cortex को information दे करके, और ये जो है सो नीचे with the help of descending tract, with the help of the descending tract, or you can see the corticospinal or the corticobulbar tracts के through, ये जो है सो हमारे basically corticobulbar tracts के through ये हमारे उन muscles को supply करेंगे जो कि lip, tongue, larynx और pharynx को supply करते हैं, जिसकी वजह से that's why this area is called as the Broca area. The information, as we know in the वर्णिक theory, that is the वर्णिक, यहाँ पे information sound का arise करेगा, यहाँ से with the help of the arcuate fasciculus they go to the Broca area, from the Broca area go to the motor cortex, and from the motor cortex it goes to the. Other than that, there is another areas of the executive or the expressive, other area is called as the exner area. This exner area is called as the writing area. You can see it is situated very close to the Broca area. Broca area के ही नजदीक में है. But these are a specific role or their specific function is to visually perceive the words and given the expression in writing through this area. And last is the role of the arcuate fasciculus. Arcuate fasciculus coordinates the understanding and execution of speech and language skills. So this is the arcuate fasciculus. There is one more is called degenerate area. Degenerate area. This is also called as the angular gyrus. Angular gyrus का ही दूसरा नाम degenerate area है. अब इन सभी एरियाज के ब्रॉडमैन्स एरियाज के नंबर दिए गए हैं. दैट इज वर्निक एरिया इज कॉल्ड एज ब्रॉडमैन number 22. Broca area is the 44 and 45. Broca area is the 44, 45. What is the Brodmann number for the temporal or the auditory cortex? Anybody remember? Auditory cortex का क्या number है? Auditory cortex का क्या number है? It is basically 41, 42. So auditory cortex in the temporal lobe. Motor writing area axoner, it is basically present near the supplementary motor cortex called in the area number 6. Area number 6. Motor cortex, you all know the primary motor, supplementary motor, it is the area number 4, and degenerate area is called area number 39. So these are the various Brodmann's area and their names which are involved in the speech. This is in the tabular form that what are the different areas of basically which are involved in the so motor areas are the Broca area, upper frontal motor cortex motor area, upper frontal motor area, basically it is the axoner. This one is the name called as the axoner area जो अभी हमने पढ़ा था axoner. So this is the axoner area. Then secondary auditory area, it is called as vernix. Then secondary visual cortex is also having the role that is concerned with. So these are then vernic area, basically this is concerned with the interpretation of the visual sensations, concerned with the understanding of the information and sending information to the Broca area. So these are the different roles of the cortical areas in the motor speech. And the rest part of related to the physiology of speech we will discuss physiology, and then the related disorders we will discuss in the next session. Thank you all. So in today's session we have discussed about the historical aspect, definition part, and then we discussed about the role of the various cortical areas in the control of speech. Thank you all.